What's going on, folks? It's Friendly Neighborhood Old Soldier coming to you today from Robeson County, North Carolina. Me and Ms. Old Soldier headed to Fort Bragg, North Carolina to get her a new identification card because hers is about to expire. So for those who don't know, when you make the military career and you retire, you still are entitled to post or base privileges. I say post or base because a lot of people seem to think Army has bases. No, we have posts, and that's how they're addressed as. I just want to clarify that little bit of knowledge there, folks. But retirees and their dependents are still entitled to base and post exchange privileges, commissary. But our ID cards also serve as our insurance card, basically, for our TRICARE benefits. Or trying care is what I like to call it, because, depending on what feckless, worthless civilian contractor at the Humana that you talk to, depends on the quality level of care that you get when you have an issue to get resolved with them. Oh, did I say that out loud? Anyway. Yeah, I'm in a bit of a mood because this is going to be a continuation of the video from day before yesterday. I thought I was done, but I'm not. The more I get to thinking about this and seeing what's going on, it just utterly infuriates me. What do you mean, old soldier? Do you realize how irresponsible it was for the elected President of the United States, our Commander-in-Chief? Of course, we all know is a feckless sock puppet that, Obama's got his hand up his ass and he's saying whatever's put before him. Just arbitrarily out of the blue, go, troops gone. Just bring the people back, leave the equipment. And that's what I'm talking about today, is the equipment. Do you realize how many billions of dollars worth of equipment we just left on the ground? Everything from brand spanking new Black Hawk helicopters to MRAP and up-armored Humvee vehicles, which, by the way, if you've been watching things, what's coming out of there, a lot of the Taliban fighters have basically surrounded Kabul airport in these up-armored vehicles. And you've got troops from the 82nd Airborne on the ground trying to maintain some sense of order, getting people out. Short of a massive airstrike, if the Taliban wanted to launch an all-out attack, they had the very, very strong potential of overrunning any perimeter defenses put in place. Old soldier, we have the best military in the whole wide world. We do. Which is quickly being eroded due to the feckless leadership we have, because they're too busy and too worried about teaching CRT to the troops, and that, Bill wants to be Wilhelmina, so we're going to pay for Bill to get his junk cut off, and we're going to start addressing him as Captain Wilhelmina. And if you don't like that, folks, I don't give a rat's ass, because that's not where the military's priority should be. The other thing, too, when you look at a soldier in uniform on the battlefield, engaged on the two-way rifle range, you have to let that soldier know that you're a trained killer. Not defender, killer. Because with the enemy shooting at you, you've got two options: die or kill. There ain't no in-between on the two-way rifle range. So when the bullets start flying, you need to make sure you pick your targets and you hit them with the first shot. And when you do, make sure they go down. I.e., trained to kill. Thus, you're a trained killer. Does that make you a murderer? No. But that is the mental outlook that our troops need to have, that I'm afraid they're not being taught or given anymore. That's another reason I'm upset. I have a son and a son-in-law that's currently in. I've got a very dear friend of mine whose son is over there right now in Afghanistan as a part of this, I don't know what you call it, recovery effort, to get American citizens out. Which brings me to the next thing. There's approximately, say, between 12 and 15,000 U.S. citizens in Kabul that can't get to the airport because of the Taliban. Why? Because our priority was getting the troops out first, and then the citizens get out however you can. I get it. Many of them went over there on their own accord. But we have a responsibility to make a better effort to get them out than this. Most of the U.S. citizens probably had some means of being contacted ahead of time. Say, hey, we're getting ready to withdraw. Your visa is about to be expired or canceled, so you need to get to the airport and get home. If you can't, we're bringing in Air Force transportation to get you out, but you need to get to the airport now. So now you have U.S. citizens that are trying to fight through not only the Taliban, but the throngs of Afghani citizens that are trying to get out to save their lives. Remember I told you day before yesterday, the Taliban were going to start going around rounding people up. There's already reports coming out. They've been knocking on doors of people that supported the Americans and other coalition forces that were on the ground. And they're making lists. There's already some reports of people already being murdered just because they knew somebody that supported the Americans and they wouldn't rat that person out. So just knowing somebody that supported the American efforts can get you killed in Afghanistan. Make no bones about it, folks. The Taliban, despite all their promises right now to be more tolerant to women's rights and equality, that's a crock of hooey. It's a bold-faced lie, which under Islamic law, under Sharia law, which they like to rule by, is totally acceptable to do so to their enemies in order to save their face or save their own hide. You see, right now, if they started killing all these women and children immediately, then you might have some other nations step in and intervene. As long as they don't do so right now and they make these promises, all these pansy-ass nations that fall up under the UN and NATO are going to sit back. Okay. Old soldier, you can't say that. Those are our allies. Yeah, they're our allies as long as we're paying their freaking bills for being there. That's the other thing. Not only did we supply our own military, we supplied the military of other NATO members, probably outside of except maybe Great Britain, with equipment. Of course, a lot of these NATO countries, they really only gave a token effort, if you will. God help them if Russia rolls through. I don't think many of those nations in Europe could raise a large enough force to stop an old-fashioned Soviet attack. They'd probably get all the way to frickin' Berlin. They'd probably get all the way to Berlin before they hit a road bump. Except maybe Poland. Poland might be able to hold them for a few days. I'm PO'd beyond measure right now. The more I look at it and I see what's going on, and I see the amount of equipment that was left behind and the fact that it's falling into the Taliban's hands. But here's the other thing. The Taliban has already started negotiations with Russia and China. And all this top grade military equipment, U.S. military equipment left on the ground is now there for the taking for China and Russia to break apart, reverse engineer, find weaknesses so that on the next battleground there's a potential that we'll suffer a major defeat before we get on our feet and fight back. I would tell you to call your congressmen and senators, but they're too busy worried about saving their own ass and their own career outside of, a handful. I think in my own state there's really only one representative I give two rats' asses about, and that's Representative Cawthorn. He's not afraid to speak up and speak out. Now, my own representative, he talks good game, but I don't see much out of his feckless ass. And every time I call and talk to one of his representatives, it's almost like they're in bed with the Democratic communists up there. I called one time to say, Joe Biden and his communist colleagues, and the dude had the audacity to like, they are not communist. And I threw it back in his face because they are. He didn't like it. In other words, he played let's defend the president game. I would too if it was a real president, but we all know he's a sock puppet. So as I sit here going down the road to get to Fort Bragg, think about our young men and women that are stepping up to join, but I also think about the recruiting efforts that are being put out there. Are we finding real, true Americans that truly want to support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America and her citizenry? Or are we getting a bunch of feckless, weak, impish, don't do that to me because it doesn't feel right, Sergeant. You can't yell at me because I've never been yelled at before. I've always been told it's okay to sit down when I'm tired and don't want to work no more. Damn, dude. What good are you going to be in combat? There was a study done years ago, right before I retired, and it come out. I want to say it was funded by the Marine Corps. It might have been the Marines and the Army. The number of people that were coming into the service that, and I forget the figure, I think it was like 10 or 15% of all recruits that got to Army and Marine Corps basic training were having to go to, I know in the Army they call it, what would we used to call it in the Army? It's a physical training company. In other words, if you couldn't pass the initial screening test, which you had to do push-ups for like a half a minute, sit-ups for half a minute. The drill sergeant said they were good, you got to go on the basic. If not, you got sent to the physical fitness company. And there were some guys that got halfway through basic and they still couldn't cut the mustard in PT. They'd send them to the physical fitness company to do nothing but PT to help them get into shape. I'm trying to remember who wrote the article, but it was like 10 or 15% of all recruits. Mind this, 20 years ago, were having to go to these physical fitness training companies just to improve their PT, just so they get through basic. I think the Marines have got something similar. If you guys are currently in the Marine Corps that are watching this channel or have recently separated from the Marines, put it down in the comments below. I don't know if the Air Force or the Navy's got anything similar to it. I would say they would. Anyways, for you, Brother Kyle. Yeah, so, but anyway, back to, I didn't mean to get on that tangent, but back to this whole thing. Like I said, all this equipment left on the ground. Well, some could say, well, we left out of South Vietnam, we left all, yeah, we did. We certainly did. But we pulled all major ground forces out by 1973. The only thing we had over there was advisors until 75 when North Vietnam lied to the UN and invaded anyway, which we all knew was going to happen. The difference being is the American people had had enough and didn't want to go over and fight anymore. I get it, but I don't get it. Of course, that's another time and another discussion. Bottom line was, South Vietnam could not come up with their own funding to maintain the equipment. So by the time North Vietnamese got to it, a lot of it was already in a severe state of disrepair. This stuff is like brand new that the Taliban's getting their hands on. I've even heard reports that they've gotten their hands on F-15 simulators. F-15 simulators. Now, I can speak a little bit about simulators without getting into too much. But I will tell you this, there are certain things in the software and the hardware in a lot of these virtual flight simulators, tank training simulators, Bradley training simulators that are proprietarily protected, but also militarily protected. Meaning there's certain information on there that is considered classified information. Now, what level I can't disclose, but it is classified. And they're about to turn all this over to China. in Russia. And where's the president? On vacation. Where's the vice president? The Jezebel is trying to extend her 10-foot cattle prod to 20 foot. There are rumors coming out that she is definitively trying to separate herself from this decision to pull out, even though apparently she was in on the meeting when it was decided that was going to happen. Of course, we all know that with her, she only wants to be up there to get her face seen. She has no real clue on how to govern, administrate, or do anything else. I said it's a minor miracle she passed law school, but when you open your legs and sleep with your instructors, which is probably what she did, okay, you pass with a C, pass with a B minus. In other words, she used her body to move up through the world. It's, people have seen it. Willie Brown, if that rings a bell, anybody? She's not the first, won't be the last. But the point I'm getting at is she's showing a little bit of smarts by trying to separate herself from this. You do have members in the House calling for Joe Biden to be impeached. I don't think that'll get anywhere because there's not enough members in the House that's going to support it. Rhino or Democrat. But enough of my rant today, folks. Stay safe, stay vigilant, keep your eyes open, keep your neck on a swivel, stay armed. I'd like to tell you what to prepare for in the coming days, but I'm absolutely remiss as to what's going on. It's just anybody's call right now with the lack of leadership in the White House, in the DOD, and quite even possibly on the ground. That's where we're at, and I'll close with this: the people that are advising the commander-in-chief, his secretaries in the Defense Department, the generals on the ground, the generals here at the DOD, I'm telling you, they're all lying to the commander-in-chief. That or they're just extremely stupid. One of the two. So until then, my friends, God bless, take care, Silver Soldier out.